Satisfaction in South African survey has been released. The survey is a measure of customer satisfaction with online banking services in the country. The report is the only one of its kind to focus exclusively on internet banking and is viewed by the industry as a key feedback tool for the banks evaluated, as it reveals the behaviours and experiences of their online customers. Well, to talk to us about the report, we are joined in studio by Henk Pretorius, who is the CEO of Columinate, South Africa's leading online market research agency. Good to have you in studio. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
All right. So, internet banking, it's a survey. It's very important. How are we performing as South Africans?
I think there's good news and bad news. I think in general the banks are performing well. The facilities in South Africa do compare to international standards. I mean, in terms of features, in terms of overall satisfaction, people are generally satisfied, and there aren't really banks that are performing, I would say, below expectation levels. Obviously, there are ones that perform better. I'm sure we'll discuss that. But there are also issues, and I think one of the things that's a big concern this year is the issue of fraud. There are some significant challenges that have come up that we've seen since we've started tracking this measure in 2012, but in particular in the last year, there have been some massive increases in fraud attempts.
Yeah, which is a huge concern, because it seems to be all we're talking about lately. I mean, we've done so many interviews about this, but I don't think you can talk too much about it, because it is your money at the end of the day we're talking about. So the kind of fraud, what are we looking at?
They are the traditional, you can almost say traditional. I mean, internet banking hasn't been around that long to really call it traditional, but
how long has it been around for?
Well, since the 90s. Since the 90s for some of the banks. Yeah. And then if you think about some of the more recent entrants into this market, I mean, Capitec hasn't been around for that long. So in total, we're looking at a history that's around 20 years for some of the banks. But if we look at most consumers, they've actually only done internet banking on average for between 5 and 10 years.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, I don't remember that long ago, but yeah, definitely in the last 5 years, it's become the form of banking. So the prominent fraud that takes place.
So phishing is a very typical one. In a typical phishing attempt, what someone would do is they would send in an email soliciting information from a banking user. So in other words, they would ask for your banking details in order to get access to your passwords, to your banking login details, and in that way they would be able to access your account. Some of the other newer forms are an SMS version of that type of fraud, which is called smishing or SMS phishing, where they actually solicit the information via an SMS. Other forms include 419 scams, where someone sends an email claiming that they are going to pay over money into someone's account, but they're actually just trying to get access to someone's account details, and also deposit refund scams. Some of the more sophisticated technological ways are key logging, where someone on a public computer can actually record the strokes on a keyboard as someone puts in their password and their login details.
Yeah, okay, so the lesson learned here, and to try and make it safe, is do not respond to those emails that tell you you've won 100 million, 1,000 rand from a sheik that lives nowhere and has no idea who you are, but decided to leave you all this money. And I cannot believe people fall for this. Are you telling me people still fall for this?
Unfortunately, in great numbers. I mean, there's been a threefold increase in the number of people who've been victims of these kinds of fraud. So we distinguish in the report between a target of this kind of fraud, so someone who is conscious of the fact that they were solicited by someone to provide the information. And then we also obviously track the number of people who have actually fallen victim. Now that is a scary statistic, because at the moment what we see in the last year is that 1 out of every 5 have actually fallen victim to some sort of fraud attempt on their internet banking accounts to date.
That's frightening statistics. So I think another lesson is, in other words, don't do your banking on a public computer. Is that...
It still is a big problem. The security concerns, I mean, it's easy, I think, to place the blame solely on the banks, and they certainly do have a responsibility in terms of education and putting certain measures in place. But often the breaches occur because the consumers themselves aren't protecting their own accounts, the integrity of their accounts. So accessing, for example, from a public computer is a concern. Not storing details in a safe place is another concern. Sharing details with someone else, and not being vigilant to these kinds of fraud that are prevalent. Those are all the concerns, I think, from a consumer perspective.
Just finally, having a look at the survey, is it possible to determine which bank here in South Africa has the best online banking facility?
This year, Capitec actually outperformed the other banks.
Wow.
I think as a new entrant, they offer a very different service.
Yeah.
They're not as comprehensive as, for example, F&B is, but what they are managing to do is offer a very simple, affordable and trustworthy service. And in fact, this year, they outperformed last year's winner, which was F&B.
Okay, so Capitec taking the honour as the best
Capitec
internet
taking
banking.
it this year.
That's fantastic. Well done to Capitec and to its customers out there. And that's what I like about the industry and the banking industry. They always, because our online banking system is so good, that each bank is trying to better the next.
Correct.
And that is a benefit for us. And I think if we could get that in every sector, we'd be a very happy
Absolutely.
consumer.
It's a very competitive environment.
Yeah.
And I think also if you look at the range of different options available, traditional banks like ABSA, Nedbank and Standard Bank offer a very comprehensive service, and similarly does F&B.
Yeah.
But now we have a new entrant, which is Capitec, which offers a more simplistic service. They don't have all the features. They don't have, for example, an app, which all the other banks have, but they do offer a service that people tend to trust. And I think that makes for a very conducive environment, as you said, for competitive and enhanced service to consumers.
Excellent. Hank, thank you for talking to us. Hank
Thank
Pretorius is the CEO of Columinate. They've done online market research into internet banking here in South Africa, the things to look out for, and also hats off to Capitec. That's winning the best online banking service according to this particular survey. All right, let's